What's going on, everybody? It's Pete Toll, a.k.a. PT Sports 84, back with another NBA 2K24 2K ratings update. With me is a guest from last week, and it looks like we're going to continue it moving forward, the Real2K insider, John Markish. John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Excited. So much happened in the NBA since the last time we talked. So ready to break it
Yeah,
all down.
yeah. This one looks like to be a significantly more of an update than we had last time, so we can dive into it. Just a disclaimer for everybody. I'm going to go through each of the ratings changes, but we're not going to talk about every single player because this will be a 4-hour video, and not everybody wants to sit through a 4-hour video, so we're going to hit the highlights on each team and kind of answer some questions as we go through. But starting it off, as always, is the Philadelphia 76ers. Their changes in this update: Kelly Oubre Jr. went +1 to an 80 overall. Buddy Hield, same thing, +1 180 overall. Paul Reed went +2 to a 78 overall. Cam Payne went +2 to a 76 overall. And rounding out the team is Ricky Council IV, +4 to a 72 overall. John, how did they fare over this rating cycle?
Well, the Sixers are 33-22, now fifth in the Eastern Conference. They are 3-9 since the last update. Joel Embiid went down with a knee injury. He tried to play through. He had been banged up a little bit, and the media was grumbling about his MVP candidacy. He ducked out on the Denver game against Jokic. So is he really hurt? So he ended up trying to play against Golden State, and it was pretty clear that he was hurt, and Jonathan Kuminga banged into his leg, and he ended up leaving the game, and then he has to get surgery, he had an option of either rehabbing or going under the knife. It looks like he's going to go under the knife, and it remains to be seen whether or not he will return this regular season. So he's going to miss out on all the awards because he's not going to hit the game's minimum. And the Sixers are free falling without him. So he's already missed the 19 games. The Sixers are 26-8 with Embiid, but 6-14 without him. So they win 76% of their games with him, only 30% of their games without him. There's 27 games remaining. They're currently on an 8-win pace without Joel. So that would mean they would finish 41-41, eighth in the Eastern Conference in the play-in. So is it realistic for Embiid to come back in that scenario where even, they do the play-in and then what? They're going to face Boston in the first round?
Yeah, that's my nightmare scenario as a Sixers fan. Like just Boston or Milwaukee in round one. Like, come on.
Yeah, so do you think that they should just focus on 2025? Or do you think that Joel Embiid can, when healthy, he can really make the difference in a playoff series?
I would focus. For me, originally when it came out and he had the option of doing, I guess, the full repair or doing what they call like snip surgery. I'm not sure of the technical name, but he opted for the snip surgery just to be able to come back faster because obviously he is a competitor. He likes to play. But if you're looking at the long term, that does a lot more damage in the short term. And he's already injury prone. So it kind of puts him on a restriction going forward in his career. Rather, if he had the repair, he might have been able to play a little bit longer, but he would have forfeited the season. But if you look at it, as you said, what are you playing for? Like, there's nothing to play for if you're going to get bounced in round one anyway. So I don't know what kind of the thinking was there across the board. They did get some pluses as far as the trade deadline. You obviously get Buddy Hield, who's averaging over 20 a game for them, shooting it, really well. You have Tyrese Maxey there. Luckily, Maxey's not having to be the focal point entirely now. You've got Kelly Oubre able to step up. He's kind of scored all season, but now his scoring load is increased a little more since then. And then Kyle Lowry, who has yet to play, he won't play until after the All-Star break. He comes via buyout from Charlotte. We'll see if he has anything left. He's, 37 years old. So I think Nick Nurse is probably going to want to get him in the starting lineup get him minutes next to Maxey a little bit. Maybe not every game, but enough. But in fairness, Campaign is also there. He's actually increased his scoring up to 14 a game over 3 games as a Sixer as well. So we'll see moving forward how it goes for them. But I'm not optimistic when it comes to playing Milwaukee or Boston, even New York in round 1. Personally,
Yeah, that's been the thing. It hasn't just been Embiid that's been out. It's been a lot of guys on their team. Melton hasn't played since January 12th. Robert Covington's been out since December 30th. Nick Batum's been out since January 29th. Tobias Harris has missed 5 of the last 12 games. Like KJ Martin is the starting 4 right now. Ricky Council IV, he went up 4 points because he's been in the rotation. And Ricky Council's a bucket. I think he averaged like 10. He averages like 10 points in 14 minutes. Mm-hmm. But and Buddy Hield has been a solid addition. Campaign, I think that was a shrewd move, trading Pat Bev for him, because now that Embiid's out, they are going to need scoring now, and I thought that was a reasonable move on the margins. And obviously they had some idea that they were going to pick up Kyle Lowry on the buyout market. I do think that Lowry might make sense in the starting lineup next to Maxey. And then maybe you can use Hield at the 3. He'd already been playing the 3 with like the Kings and the Pacers the last couple of years. So, just go small ball and hope to outscore the opposition, because obviously with the big fella out, they are going to be a little stretched, defensively out there. Paul Reed, also, for what it's worth, he's been really good. And the last 2 years of his contract, they only fully guarantee if the Sixers get out of the first round this year. That was one of the more interesting quirks out of any contract that was signed this year. So otherwise, he makes $15 million over the next 2 years, like 7.7 per or whatever. Those are non-guaranteed if the Sixers don't get out of the first round, which would mean that they could cut him and create cap room or renegotiate or whatever.
Which is crazy. That's crazy considering his production level too.
Yeah, he's worth his contract. So I don't think that they would they wouldn't just waive him or anything like that. But it would actually open up. His contract would become a lot more valuable as a trade asset to another team in that scenario. So that is something worth keeping an eye on. Paul Reed definitely going to want to ball out. They want to get that 6th seed. And then face Milwaukee in round 1 or whatever, because then you might have a puncher's chance of getting to the second round. And then after that, who knows? Because injuries, of course, are always a factor for all teams, not just the Sixers, in theory.
Right. I'm surprised they're not looking at the buyout market as far as maybe a backup center, just because Mo Bamba doesn't really give you anything. He's been hurt. And then Kenneth Lofton Jr., he could score, but he's not going to do anything else. And he's on a 2-way, so it is what it is, I guess. Let's jump over to the Milwaukee Bucks. So their changes: Damian Lillard goes down 2 to a 90 overall. Malik Beasley -2 to a 75 overall. Jay Crowder -1 to a 75 overall. Marjan Beauchamp -2 to a 74 overall. AJ Green +1 to a 73 overall, and then rounding it out is Thanasis Antetokounmpo -2 to a 70 overall. How'd they fare in the last ratings, in between the last ratings update and now, John?
Well, the Milwaukee Bucks are 35-20, third in the Eastern Conference. They are 4-7 since the last update, 3-6 with Doc Rivers. They do play tonight versus Memphis to close out before the All-Star break. Chris Middleton's been out through the All-Star break. He's missed 5 of the last 6 and only played 8 minutes in the one that he did. So I kind of had a question for you. Did the Bucks make a mistake trading for Dame Lillard?
On the defensive side of the ball, yes. Offensively, I think they thought that they were getting Dame Lillard that could do a little bit more pick and roll with Giannis and it'd go a little bit smoother. But it just seems like they don't really know how to operate with each other. And then Middleton being out, as it has been in the past, really changes the outlook for the Milwaukee Bucks, because obviously you can shoot in the mid-range, the 3, then defensively, they're taking a huge step back without him. Bringing in Doc Rivers, they've been better in transition and their defense has improved, but their offense just looks sloppy just as it did under AJ Griffin. What do you think?
Yeah, so what it comes down to when people ask that question, because they're comparing Dame's production this year versus Dame's production last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's external factors that affect the answer to that question. Giannis signed his extension, so no, it wasn't a mistake. He would not have signed that extension unless they got picked up Dame in that trade. So, it wasn't a mistake, clearly. Giannis is their franchise. They've got him under team control. If they decide to end up blowing it up, maybe they trade Giannis 2 or 3 years down the line. We'll see. But
that would be crazy.
Milwaukee, they probably would have been in this spot even if they didn't trade Drew Holiday for Dame Lillard, because part of their issues have been that Middleton's been hurt and the rest of the roster is just like older and not as good defensively. It's not like Drew Holiday was the entire defense or anything like that. And it's, Dame has done a lot on offense to carry the Bucks. They are in third place in the East. The biggest difference is maybe Boston wouldn't be where they were at, because that was part of the problem is they traded Drew Holiday and then he went to the Boston Celtics in a subsequent trade. Because he's been the perfect fit for Boston. But Dame is, he's picked up the scoring load all year for Middleton in a way that Drew wouldn't have been able to. And Dame dropped 2 points in this cycle. For this cycle, he averaged 21 points, 6 assists, only shot 42% from the field, 33% from three. Last year, he was in that Steph Curry tier, 26.7 player efficiency rating, 8th in the NBA. This year, he's in that Trae Young tier, 20.0 PER, 30th in the NBA. Trae's 28th, Colin Sexton is 30th, Tyrese Maxey's 31st. So this is the range of players that Lillard's been in line with. So the Dame Giannis pairing hasn't been as explosive because Lillard's he's been dealing with some health issues himself. He's not 100%, but he's playing through it. He wouldn't have been an all-star in the West, and there have been a lot of people think that Jalen Brunson should have been starting over him in the Eastern Conference, and the Lillard's being limited by injury a little bit, I think, is reflected in his finishing ability more so than his shooting. On layups this year, 55% from the field. Last year he was at 63%, which is really good for he was like 33 or 32. And then from 3 to 15 feet, which is floater range, he was 71 of 195 last year, 36%. This year he's 88 of 191. Sorry, I got that backwards. This year he's 36%. Last year he was 46%.
That's a huge difference.
He's dropped 8. Yeah, inside 15 feet, just his efficiency's just completely fallen off, and that's because he's not turning the corner when he gets by defenders the way that he was.
And the interesting thing for me going forward with Milwaukee, obviously they're going to trim the rotation under Doc. They've trimmed it under Doc Rivers. They're going to probably trim it maybe even a player less when we get to the playoffs. It's how they make adjustments, because we know Doc Rivers has not been the coach to make adjustments when things start going bad. So I'll be curious to see where the relationship with Doc Rivers and Giannis is as far as when he does or does not make adjustments. And then with Damian Lillard, you got to think Doc Rivers had Chris Paul, who's not really a score first guy. So has he ever had a dynamic point guard like Damian Lillard to know how to unlock that potential and get him in the best spots going forward? Because obviously with the playoffs, they're going to intensify and you're going to have to make split second decisions. So that's what I'll be looking for, especially out of the Doc Rivers dynamic with things, and Middleton being healthy. That's the other part.
Yeah. The good thing is the Bucks are used to having a coach who doesn't make adjustments.
Yeah, very true. Good point. All right, let's jump over to the Chicago Bulls. So their changes: DeMar DeRozan goes +1 to an 86. Kobe White goes +1 to an 82. Nick Vucevic goes +1 to an 83. Ayu Dosunmu goes +1 to a 77. Torrey Craig -1 to a 74. And then Javon Carter -1 to a 73. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
Well, they're 26 and 29, ninth in the Eastern Conference, 5-5 since the last update. 3 games behind the Orlando Magic, 3 games ahead of the Hawks. They've got a stranglehold on that number 9 spot, just like they drew it up. Do the Bulls understand where they are as a franchise?
I
They
do.
did nothing at the trade deadline.
Yeah. I think everybody's baffled with why they didn't make a move at all. Like I don't think anybody can really understand where, like, I get the Zach LaVine injury. You kind of missed the window there, but you had Caruso. You could have traded for probably picks. You could have got DeRozan for picks, especially being on expiring. But now they want to re-sign him to a contract extension in the offseason. It's like, where are we going with Vucevic, LaVine, and DeRozan? Like, you're not, you had Lonzo Ball's contract that you could have gotten out of as far as insurance covering it if he doesn't come back. If he does for another team, then that's good for them because then they have a really good defending point guard that can shoot threes. So I mean, they could have got some value for some of their players, but they chose to stand pat, and I don't understand that. I don't think anybody does, even Bulls fans, obviously.
I think they just overvalue their players to like they said something like Alex Caruso, they rate him really high in their system, so they're not going to trade him unless there's like a Godfather offer, like whatever their evaluations on him are, they're really high, which makes sense because like Caruso's one of the more exciting guys to watch, like probably a lot of fans like favorite Bull at this point, aside from like guys like Kobe White and stuff, but again, like they understand where they are as a franchise because Caruso's 29, turning 30 next year, and he gets hurt a lot. So his value is never going to be higher than it is right now. He's coming off of all defense first team, putting together another all defensive. He's Zach LaVine. That was another situation where they were trying to move him the entire year. Teams were calling for him. The Knicks called for him during the summer,
Yep.
and they heard the asking price from the Bulls was giant, according to Fred Katz of the Athletic. When they were looking into trading him during the season, when even when he was hurt the first time, they were asking for draft picks, and from the Pistons they wanted a draft pick and one of their good young stars, a
Hmm.
Cade or an Ivy or Duran or a Sar Thompson, one of those guys. And like Zach LaVine's on one of the worst contracts in the NBA, and he's not he's got some red flags injury wise in his career. So this is not a guy that if any team gave up what the Bulls were asking for, and then LaVine gets hurt, they all would have been. This was not an unforeseen circumstance, like LaVine being out for the year and only playing 25 games this year. So, but the Bulls, they're like they treat all of their potential moves as like they're only going to make it in if they're like completely screwing over the team that they're trading with. Like they just have unrealistic demands for all their guys. And DeRozan, you said, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's going to be 35 years old next year. They're going to be looking at the play-in again, and like, what are we doing with this
Apparently
team?
they like the play in. That's where they feel the most comfortable, and it's like I don't get it. Like, I would have done Levine like a couple weeks before it got announced he had to have surgery to the Pistons, and everybody kind of flamed it like, oh, you're not going to get anything back. You'll get like Killian Hayes and James Wiseman and a couple other like not Fournier, forgot the contract. There was a larger contract for
Bogdanovich?
no, yeah, Bogdanovich, but then either that or Joe Harris, his
Oh,
contract.
right, yeah,
Um, and it was like, okay, but they're all expiring contracts. So you could reset the team completely. Like, because you can
yeah,
move Vucevic in the offseason and rebuild kind of how you want and then kind of build it under the GM, kind of the team he wants to build from scratch. So,
yeah. Well, he
but
doesn't want to rebuild
apparently
from
not.
scratch,
So, yeah,
unfortunately.
apparently not. So
Yeah, part of this might be the owner too. Jerry Reinsdorf is one of the worst owners in the NBA.
yeah,
But the core of this team, they have a young team. Aside from they have a bunch of guys who are 23 and a bunch of guys who are 30, like
right.
nothing in between. And like the future of this team is, Kobe White, who this cycle averaged 22 points a game, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, played 40 minutes a game. He had 32 last night, leads the league in minutes played, eighth in minutes per game. He's played all 55 games this year. That's somebody that you would want to build your team around. Ayo Dosunmu at 23. Patrick Williams, for all his struggles, he's still only 22. They
Right.
have Dalen Terry, who's 21. Julian Phillips, who's 19. So like anybody who's 28 or older just should not be on this team anymore. They could have gotten 2 second-rounders for Andre Drummond easily.
Yo, yeah, that's
They're not going
another
to be
one.
able to move Vucevic, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I don't get
But
it
by
either.
the way, they owe the Spurs a first round pick next year,
Oh, that's right.
which is top 10 protected.
That's crazy.
So like, like DeRozan might not even be on the team next year, and they owe a first rounder for him. Which for the DeRozan era, they've got a 5-game first round playoff exit, and then three. This is going to be their third play-in berth. Beyond that, like. It's insane. We have to move on. We can't spend all day.
No.
laughing at the
All
Bulls.
right, let's go to the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell goes +1 to a 93. Both Evan Mobley and Jared Allen go +1 to an 87. Darius Garland goes -1 to an 85. Karis LeVert -1 to a 79. Craig Porter Jr., new standard contract. Craig Porter Jr. goes -1 to a 74. And then Dean Wade goes -1 to a 73. How have they looked in the interim?
They've looked really fucking good. The Cavs are 36-17, second in the Eastern Conference, 10-1 since the last update, 18-2 in their last 20 games. They've got the number 2 defense in the NBA. Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen came back from injury, so they were already winning even with those guys out. So they're just cutting through the league like butter right now. Mitchell this cycle, 31 points per game, 7 assists per game, 52% from the field, 42% from three. Another All-NBA season. He was just the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. I've got him at a 95 overall in my roster. They'd be fucking around with his badges. I don't know what they'd be doing, but and then Evan Mobley. We talked about him not expanding his range this year. Well, since returning from injury, he's hit 8 threes. Prior to his injury, he'd only hit 1 on the year. So, and he's hit them like he's I think 39% on the season. So like he's hitting them when he's wide open at the very least. Like that's a step in the right direction, For his part, 16 points per game, 10 rebounds, only 25 minutes per game, shooting 63 and 55, 78 from the or 78 from the line. I think he was like in the low 70s or like upper 60s last year. And then 55% from three, obviously in the low volume, but still good. Garland, he's been a little more shaky, 13 points per game, 6 assists, only 27 minutes, shooting 28% from three since his return, so that's why he drops a point. And then good for Craig Porter Jr. to get his 4-year deal. Comparable to what the contract that Jose Alvarado got from the New Orleans Pelicans, basically 4 years, $8 million. He's got $1 million guaranteed next year and then none in the last 2, but he's such a good player that it's pretty much a lock, barring injury, that those last 2 years will get picked up. So he gets some life-changing money right now, and the Cavs get team control over him. He won't hit unrestricted free agency until he turns 27, so really good addition for him. I guess he drops in this update just because he hadn't been playing much. I think they had hit his they were getting close to hitting his 2-way restriction. Or games limit, so they had kind of eased up on playing him. Plus, the rest of the guys came back, but he's going to be a stable part of their team for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I only have one note. Just with Evan Mobley, the ability to stretch the floor really, really helps the dynamic of him and Jared Allen together because now it's not kind of so clogged up in there. Then you have Georges Niang that could shoot threes, Sam Merrill that shoots threes, so they have a good balance on this team. What I'll be interested to see if they get like I wouldn't say a hardship exception. Well, I guess maybe it would be a hardship with Tristan Thompson being out with the 25 games because they have hit the 5-game mark where they can sign another big man to kind of take over because Damian Jones is not going to fill that role kind of as the backup big. So I'll be curious to see if maybe they get somebody just for the short term coming back from the All-Star break. And then
The return of Robin Lopez?
Could be. Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
He'd probably be a good fit with the Sixers, though.
We'll see. We'll see. One also returned. I know doesn't really affect this update or much at all, but Zaire Smith is back in the NBA on a 10-day contract. Has played well since recovering from injuries. So cool to see him back. Former Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll see.
Cavs have been using their open roster spot to just promote all their G League guys to 10 days throughout the year, like give them a little extra bonus money. I don't know if any of those guys is really going to stick. They're probably going to add one guy on the buyout market.
Probably. That would be my guess. I think maybe they might reward Sharif Cooper with the 10-day, and then after that, then they'll decide on what they're going to do full term with that spot. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
But
well, do they have an open two-way spot now? They promoted Craig Porter, right?
Yes, so they do have.
Yeah, so
even though in the 2K roster he's not promoted yet, he is officially promoted. So yes, it does add the two-way spot. So we'll see who they add there, but it is what it is. But let's jump over to the Boston Celtics. So their changes: Kristaps Porzingis goes +1 to an 88 overall, -1 for Derek White to an 84 overall, -1 for Luke Cornett to a 75 overall, +1 for Jaden Springer to a 71 overall, and then +2 for Drew Peterson to a 70 overall, which I found kind of interesting since he doesn't play. But
Peterson is just due to a position change.
Makes sense. Okay.
From the 4 to the 3.
Gotcha. Makes sense. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
The Boston Celtics are 43-12, first in the Eastern Conference, 9-2 since the last update. They're riding a 6-game win streak into the break. They have the number 1 offense in the league, number 3 in defense. They're number 1 in SRS rating, and then number 1 in net rating in the NBA. They beat the Nets 136-86. It was the second 50-point win of the season for the Boston Celtics, 5th in their franchise's history, which then made me look at their SRS rating of a 10.04, which is first in franchise history, going over the other top teams in their franchise history by SRS, which is a simple rating system that Basketball Reference uses. It's basically point differential mixed with difficulty of schedule. So basically a 50-point win against the Brooklyn Nets versus a 50-point win against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Those would be weighted differently. Like if you beat a really good team by a lot, it makes a difference. Whereas like if you're only beating a good team by 2 points, it means maybe they'll get you in the next one, But so a 10.04 SRS for this Boston Celtics team, 9.30 for the team in 2008. They won the title. KG, Pearson, Garnett, or KG, Pearson, Ray Allen, I should say, Rajon Rondo, etc. 9.06 in 1986. They won the title. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson. 825 in 1962, 762 in 1960, 746 in 1965. Those were the Russell Cousy, Sam Jones, and later John Havlicek years. All of these teams won the title. So this we might be looking at the best Celtics team in franchise history, which is crazy. Obviously, they need to win the title.
Right.
But they're the clear favorites to make it to the finals out of the East, at the very least, to get to the conference finals in a matchup with either Cleveland or Milwaukee. But this right now is one of those classic teams that 2K fans are going to be clamoring for to add to the game one day. They have 4 All-Stars plus Derek White and Al Horford, who were essentially All-Stars in their roles. I just appreciate the greatness of this team right now. All thanks to the Dame Lillard trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Holiday, a lot of people talk about Porzingis' difference, but I think Holiday is the biggest difference. He sacrifices scoring to make sure that the defense is shored up, and then you got Derek White emerging. He already was starting to show flashes last year, but now really emerged this year. Obviously, the Porzingis advantage of, I mean, you just can't guard him out at the 3-point line because he's just going to shoot over you. Jaylen Brown's been more under control. Tatum sometimes can get a little shot happy and take some bad shots, but overall, like he's looked really good this year. Al Horford has played his role to a T. Peyton Pritchard, who wanted to be traded previously, has emerged this year. Sam Hauser, Hauser-Matic, as they call him, off the bench, has been killing it. Luke Cornett has filled in. I'll be interested to see once Xavier Tillman gets healthy as another big body, because defensively his numbers look good in Memphis. So I hope he can carry that over to Boston.
Yeah, just another good guy. It's shades of when they added PJ Brown back in '08.
Oh, good call. Yeah, that's actually, yeah, man. Yeah, I forgot about that. All right, let's go to another team that's looked pretty good this year. The LA Clippers. So their changes are Kawhi Leonard going +1 to a 93 overall. Paul George, who always seems to get an up and down rating, like almost like constantly for whatever reason from 2K. He goes -1. Amir Coffey goes +2 to a 75, and then Terrence Mann goes +1 to a 74. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
Well, you are correct. There are Paul George has gone up or down in rating in all but two of the rating updates this year. But the Clippers for this rating cycle, 36-17, they're third in the East in the Western Conference. They're our first Western Conference team. Gotta love the alphabet. 8-3 since the last update, and they just beat the Warriors without Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, that was his only fifth DNP of the season. So, these 65 minimum game for awards, etc. These were instituted, to make guys like Kawhi Leonard and stuff play more. Kawhi has no issues playing games. He missed like 4 games consecutively earlier. This is like the first random game that he's missed. He's been playing back to backs, etc. So, he's back at full health. He's playing at MVP level. There's going to be names like his popping up now that Embiid is no longer qualified for the award. So, on the year, for the cycle, 25, 6, and 3 in 33 minutes per game. Shot 55% from the field, 49% from 3, 95% from the line. He was the Western Conference Player of the Week for February 5th. And, he's going to figure prominently into the awards as the Clippers. They're a lot better post-Harden deadline after they were kind of the laughingstock of the league for that first 2 weeks. Paul George, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists in only 29 minutes per game for this cycle. Shot only 40%, 29 from 3, 91% from the line. So that's essentially why he dropped his shooting efficiency, tailed off the cycle. But James Harden, he picked it up in. It's good to have a big three. He averaged 17 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists in 35 minutes per game, shooting 41% from the 3-point line. He's been really good off the dribble this year.
Yeah, I like the dynamic of having, like, I guess you could say Harden's kind of the safety valve, which is ironic considering that he, his history in the playoffs. But overall, I mean, I personally don't foresee, if they stay completely healthy, I don't see anybody stopping them in the West unless Denver gets more depth to their bench. Only note I have for them, it's interesting story came out yesterday. PJ Tucker and Bones Highland both were sent home early, just to kind of reset their mindset and all of that. Obviously, PJ Tucker has been disgruntled previously, has made it known to multiple reporters that he wanted to be traded at the trade deadline. Nothing came about. Bones Highland, we hadn't really heard anything about, but it kind of is alarming for him because he did the same thing in Denver last year and was traded at the deadline where he was unhappy with his role. So it'd be interesting to see going forward kind of how that dynamic is. Not that either player likely plays come playoff time, but it is just as far as like camaraderie in the locker room and chemistry overall, where that plays a part with the team.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that they didn't find a home for Bones Highland because, like, obviously he's not going to win any Teammate of the Year awards, but he is a talented player. He's only 23 years old. Like, he's going to be up for a contract extension this coming summer. So he, his career hangs in the balance. So he kind of can't afford to be riding the, he barely plays for this team ever since they picked up Harden. So I don't have, but maybe he'll get his moment to shine. It's not like Harden is the most durable player in the world. The Clippers are an older team. Westbrook himself is, 30, 35. He's insurance behind two older point guards. Hopefully he gets a moment.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say with Westbrook, that's another X factor because if you essentially don't have like Harden having a good game, you could always bring Westbrook in, kind of as a complementary piece. Now, whether he helps you in the game or hurts you in the game, that's remain to be seen. But kind of coming off the bench as an X factor, I like that for the Clippers.
Yeah, and PJ Tucker averaging 1 point per game, making like $11 million a year. Boo-hoo, he didn't get traded. There's a reason why he didn't get traded, because the same reason Zach LaVine didn't get traded. You're not good enough to justify your contract, so you're gonna have to wait a year. And the $11 million that you make is, enjoy the free ride.
Exactly, and I think he might be done because if you looked at him, even his defense, it was like, okay, if you're not able to be elite on defense, obviously his age is playing the biggest factor. But if you can't do anything on defense, you're not out there for anything because you're just shooting the corner three, which you're not even shooting that well. So
yeah, I'm sure he will fill the Udonis Haslem role in Miami once he gains his freedom.
Good point. Good point. All right, let's jump to a team that's riddled with injuries, but it looks like they're getting some of their guys back more recently. The Memphis Grizzlies. Their changes in this update, Vince Williams Jr. got a +2 to a 78 overall. G.G. Jackson is the biggest mover in the entire update. He goes +6 to a 78 overall. Jacob Gilyard goes +1 to a 73 overall. John Conchar goes +1 to a 72 overall. Scottie Pippen Jr. goes +4 to a 72 overall. And Trey Jemison III goes +3 to a 71 overall. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
Well, Memphis Grizzlies, they are 18-36, 13th in the Western Conference. They are 1-9 since the last update. They have lost 9 in a row, most in the NBA. They play tonight versus Houston. Can they make it 10? Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, they'll all be back around March. So the young guys like G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams have been getting a chance to play. G.G. Jackson, he's been somebody that fans have been clamoring for to get a higher rating. So at a +6, he was the biggest mover in this update. 14 points per game, 4 rebounds, 26 minutes per game over this cycle. Only 41% from the field, 31% from three. He's a young player, youngest in the NBA, if I recall.
Yes,
he gets his 4-year deal. I'm sorry?
He is. He's the youngest player.
Good. I'm not just making things up. Perfect.
Right.
4 years, $8.5 million, 3 years guaranteed. The 4th year is a team option, which is slightly less than Vince Williams, who got 4 years, $9.1 million on his contract about a month ago. Also a 4th year team option. Those are incredible values for a capped out team. The Memphis Grizzlies are going to be the reason they dumped. Part of the reason they dumped Steven Adams is they have huge financial restrictions coming their way. They're probably going to have to decline Luke Kennard's $14.7 million team option. So for them to get 2 core players in their rotation that were on two ways previously, that's a huge get for them, even though they're not winning games at the moment. Yuta Watanabe, he made his return to the Grizzlies. He's a guy who came up through their system also. Had 11 points in 25 minutes. He should play a lot more than he did with Phoenix. And then Lamar Stevens, he's somebody that they kind of like for their system. 10 points in 26 minutes in his debut. They've got Jordan Goodwin on a 10-day contract on the hardship exception. He's somebody who fits with similar to like Shaq Harrison, how they had him in preseason, how they were going to bring him in. Defensive-minded guard, he kind of fits what they're doing. Maybe more of a look for like a flyer for like next year, because Marcus Smart will be coming back eventually, and Derrick Rose. He might take Derrick Rose's job for like next year. Although Rose is under contract next year too. Maybe they could just move him in a trade. They have a few guys that they need to shed some salary. Zaire Williams makes $6 million next year. Brandon Clark, it's gonna be interesting to see how he plays because he makes $12.5 million a year and he's signed for like the next like 4 or 5 years. with the torn Achilles, and he's essentially their backup center behind Jaren Jackson Jr. They had to move Jackson Jr. over to the five like full time because of all the injuries that they've had and having to move Adams out. And who's the other guy they're going to have to let go of? Oh, Jake LaRavia has done nothing on his rookie scale deal. They're going to want to move him out. And John Conchar, back when they originally signed him to like his extension, he was making $6 million a year. Good guy for their system, but he's probably overpaid by like double at this point. Probably should be making $3 million. Hasn't really figured prominently into the rotation, and they just need every dollar they can get because of the luxury taxing implications.
I think for me, for the biggest thing that they probably need, what hurt them with Steven Adams is having a locker room presence that's a veteran, because Derrick Rose doesn't really, he's not vocal. It's evident with Gigi Jackson coming out in an interview. He was suspended for conduct detrimental to the team. He came out in the interview and said he had already been suspended 4 times by the team internally. So I was like, wow. So you literally, this is your rookie season.
He had his issues in college too.
He did, and the rookie,
the
rookie, or not the rookie, in one of his workouts, he got caught in the bathroom vaping between the workouts. So that was interesting. But just moving forward, I think they need more of a better balance, especially with the Ja Morant stuff having previously happened. They got to find a good balance between the two. But obviously, having Bane, Jaren Jackson, and Ja Morant, you have a good core right there. Adding in Marcus Smart and guys like that as veterans, but I think they need a little bit more moving forward. But right now, with all the injuries, it's time to shine for Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams, Scottie Pippen Jr., who ironically was in the G League and now he's starting. Another note, Jacob Gilyard has reached his 50-game max for the Grizzlies as far as on a two-way. So I'll be interested to see kind of what they do, because they were going to alternate between Gilyard playing and Pippen Jr. playing on the two-way contracts, and now they don't have that option anymore. So we'll see what happens.
They've been that hurt. And Gilyard was on a 2-year two-way, so they definitely should have some idea of whether or not they're going to promote him. Yeah, it's tough.
Maybe Lamar Stevens goes, like, to make room for him. I don't know where else they could really go with it as far as contracts, unless you get a buyout of like Derrick Rose or something, because Rose is playing like one game, then he's out for 2 weeks, then he comes back again, and so it's kind of like, maybe, but then like you said, he's under contract next year. It's hard to foresee where they go.
They have so many guys who are hurt. They maybe should have moved on from like Luke Kennard or something now rather than later. Or they could just let Gilyard sit and not play him the rest of the year and then figure things out during the summer. Because that's essentially what happened with Gigi Jackson. Is they wanted to offer him a standard contract. They didn't have the roster spots during the summer. So that's why he started off on the two-way. And they eventually took care of him at the trade deadline. Trade deadline is more or less when a lot of these guys get converted from their two ways, because that's when roster spots open up. Teams don't want to commit; they want the flexibility.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump over to the Atlanta Hawks. They had, let me go back up in the menu so people can see. So Onyeka Okongwu goes +1 to an 81 overall. Jalen Johnson also +1 to an 81 overall. Bogdan Bogdanovic -1 to an 80 overall. Sadiq Bey +2 to a 79 overall. DeAndre Hunter -1 to a 79 overall. Garrison Matthews +1 to a 72 overall. Patty Mills -2 to a 72 overall. And then Vik Krejci goes +2 to a 70 overall. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
Well, the Atlanta Hawks, they're 24-31, 10th in the Eastern Conference. They went 6-5 this update. Trae Young, he was Eastern Conference Player of the Week for February 5th, averaged 27 points, 11 assists, 38 minutes per game. Over this rating cycle, shot 41% from three. He struggled earlier in the year, so he's picked up his three-point shooting, and as of last game, is the number one three-point make leader in Hawks franchise history. Hit his 1,000th and the 51st three-pointer, passing Mookie Blaylock on their all-time list. I think he might be the guy who gets traded rather than DeJounte Murray. What do you
Ooh.
think?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Just based on if they get bounced early again, like you got to look at a full reset for the team because it hasn't worked. They made the Eastern Conference Finals. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago that they made it?
2001.
Yeah. So there you go. So looking at it, it's kind of like if you're not going to play defense, you're not going to fight through screens. Your shooting is, you know, it's okay. As far as off the dribble, you're able to set guys up, but only kind of when it benefits him. So I don't know. I think DeJounte Murray fits Quinn Snyder's system a little better, personally.
Hmm.
I wouldn't mind seeing Trey. I don't want him to go to the Lakers because I don't want that whole narrative to come about. But I think if you put him in the Spurs system, him and Wembanyama, I think that's a good tandem with Devin Vassell as kind of the third guy. I think that's the pretty good trio. It's just what are the Spurs outside of draft picks? What are they going to be able to give you as far as young pieces enough to satisfy the Hawks for the return? Because you have to look at the Hawks want to sell tickets, and Trey is how they kind of sell tickets right now. So they got to be able to get that back in some form. So we'll see what happens. I'm definitely going to be watching them for the offseason.
Yeah, so I think I've come to it with this. The reason I pose this question is because it's grumblings that kind of come out that Trey Young might be on the market during the summer because the teams that were trying to pry away DeJounte Murray, they just didn't have enough first rounders. The teams that only have like one first rounder to trade, they're going to have three first rounders to trade during the summer. But at that point, can we get in on the Trey Young conversations? Like, do we have enough for him? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because the Hawks they're also trying to save money. Yes, they want to sell tickets, but they also don't want to spend money either. So they're in that delicate balance. And Trey, as far as like what he does on the floor, I think we established during his career that he can't be the best player on a contender.
Right.
His ceiling, I think, is that 2021 team when they made the conference finals. They were essentially a second round team that got lucky against the Sixers. They had a 47 win pace. This year they're on pace for 36 wins. They were, I think, 41 and 41 last year. So they're more or less going to be a 500 team with him as the best player. And I think the Spurs they make a lot of sense with him as because they complement each other so well. Not just because Wemby is such a fantastic defensive player that he'll be able to compensate all of Trey's weaknesses. Trey's one of the best passers in the NBA, and he'll have the best lob target in possibly league history in Wembanyama. So I would love to see that kind of matchup. That's like and they're both young. That's like a young version of Dame and Giannis, and
Mm-hmm.
what people thought we were going to get out of those two. Obviously, they still have to play the games, and who knows if they'd be able to fit in the same way. That everything looks good on paper, right? But Trey Forty is not bad. For his over the last 5 years, he's averaged 27 points, 10 assists, three-time All-Star, shooting 44 from the field, 36 from three, 88 from the free throw line. His shooting percentages are pretty consistent across the board each year. I think last year he was at 34 from three, and this year he's up at 37. But like his field goal percentage is generally the same. So he made the playoffs last year, the last 3 years really, but this year they're going to need some play-in magic in order to get there.
As they do
Um,
every year, it seems like it's always like they can't ever take that leap to get to the like fourth, fifth spot. Like, and I really what it comes down to, I think the owner, he is one of those owners that doesn't want to spend a lot of money, but that wants to put this perfect product out on the floor. And I'm like, you had the chance. You could have probably traded Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter, um, during the off season and kind of maybe got some pieces back to kind of complement a little bit better. But I do like the emergence of Jalen Johnson. I like him a lot. I think both he and DeJounte Murray along with Onyeka Okongwu, are kind of where they build around. I think Capella, Bogdanovich, and Hunter would be pieces that you probably move. I believe Sadiq Bey is a free agent as well. So the roster could look a lot different next season, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny with the other thing why they couldn't really move Murray is if they move Murray, then you need to bring back another defensive guard to play next to Trae Young because otherwise they just have Bogdanovich. And like if in order, so are you also going to trade Bogdanovich because he doesn't fit next to Trae Young, but then you need another shooter. So I think like if you were just starting Murray and Bogdanovich, you you would be fine, right? And then
Right.
bring in, send Trey out and get whatever else to fill out the rest of the lineup.
Yeah. It'll be definitely interesting because I think with Quinn Snyder getting a look too, like, hey, this is not going to work. I really want to get my system kind of in here because obviously he excelled when Donovan Mitchell was kind of on the ball as like the lead guard. And it just looks a lot cleaner with DeJounte Murray. And I don't know the on-off numbers with DeJounte without Trey, but I remember seeing that it was a lot better. And the Hawks ran a lot cleaner offense. Unfortunately, with me living in Georgia, like all of the game, either you get Bally Sports or you have to watch all the highlights because, I really don't want to pay $20 a month to watch the sorry Atlanta Hawks play. The product's not good enough, so I don't watch them as much as I do all of the other teams. But what I've seen in the condensed games and stuff like that, the offense has looked better with Murray at the point guard spot. Let's jump over to the Miami Heat. Bam Adebayo goes -1 to an 87. Terry Rozier, unfortunately now out with a knee injury, goes -1 to an 81. Jaime Jaquez Jr. goes -2 to a 79. Duncan Robinson -1 to a 77. Kevin Love -1 to a 77. And then Josh Richardson +1 to a 76. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
The Miami Heat are 30-25, seventh in the Eastern Conference. They are 6-5 since the last update. They are a half game behind Indiana in sixth, 2.5 games behind Philadelphia in fifth. So, as you mentioned, Rozier is out. He's week to week with a sprained knee. Josh Richardson also out with a shoulder subluxation. If that sounds familiar, it's the same injury that Julius Randle suffered recently. So he's probably out for a month. So they don't have a point guard, also trading Kyle Lowry earlier this month. So Tyler Hero right now is the starting point guard with Duncan Robinson at the 2. They don't really have a backup. And Jimmy Butler also missed the last game with due to personal reasons. He had a death in the family. Likely back after the All-Star break. I assume that he plays the All-Star game, but because we haven't heard anything on that. As far as the buyout market goes, they do have one roster spot open, but the pickings are kind of slim for point guards. You've got Corey Joseph and Franklin Ntilikina as potential guys who would fit into the Miami system. Ugh.
They do have Drew Smith that they could potentially waive because he's out for the year. That's another way they could open up. I don't know how the money looks and stuff as far as with them with the tax threshold.
So they could bring in both Corey Joseph and Frank Ntilikina.
There you go. Just quick housekeeping note, they did make a change with their two-way. RJ Hampton didn't pan out in Orlando. He didn't pan out in Miami either. They let him go. He was traded to the Capital City Go-Go in a trade with the Sioux Falls Skyforce. Alondas Williams, who is more of a bigger point guard that's more of a scoring guard, was brought in. He was previously in their system, so just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, he might get a look. He didn't play in the last few games, but might get more acclimated after the break. RJ Hampton's been so bad. I saw his G League number, like he's not even doing well in the G League this year. So. And Miami's known for developing their G League talent, obviously. So yeah, send him to where did he go? To the Wizards G League? Oh, perfect. They need the next Jordan Poole.
There you go. Exactly.
Caleb Martin, for what it's worth, reemerged as the starter. They've kind of been swinging between him and Highsmith and Jovic the entire season, but they kind of settled on him, he was mostly the starter down the stretch last year. And Rozier, it's worth noting, prior to this injury, he had been struggling since joining Miami. Only 13 points per game, down from 23 with the Hornets. Obviously, that was going to drop because he was the only guy on the Hornets, and now he's playing with a bunch of other guys with Miami, but only shooting 36% from the field and 23% from three since joining the Heat. He was at 46 from the field and 36 from three with the Hornets, so definitely really struggling. So they're going to have to wait to acclimate him, and they're missing out on precious development time.
Yeah, I think this getting healthy is obviously the biggest need for the Heat. Once they get healthy, they're always that sleeper team come playoff time. So I'm not going to count them out completely. Let's go to a team we know is not making the playoffs, the Charlotte Hornets. Their changes in this update: Brandon Miller goes +2 to an 82 overall. Miles Bridges also goes +2 to an 82 overall. Cody Martin goes +1 to a 76 overall. Vasily Micic goes +1 to a 74 overall. Bryce McGowan goes +2 to a 73 overall. And then Leaky Black goes +2 to a 69 overall. How have they fared in this rating cycle?
Oh, Pete, O ye of little faith. I believe that the Hornets are going to go 28-0 over the rest of the season, and they will make the playoffs.
Wow. Hey, they
They
are
have
3
won
and
their
0.
last three games since
Yeah.
the trade deadline.
Right. Yep.
They are 13-41, 13th in the Eastern Conference, 3-9 since the last update, but 3-game win streak, baby.
Yeah.
Number 28 offense, number 30 defense, number 30 in SRS and net rating. However, I did an analysis video recently touching on them earlier in the week, as I really like what they've done with the roster since the trade deadline. They brought in Trey Mann, Grant Williams, Vasily Micic, Seth Curry, and Davis Bertans. And they've completely remade their bench. They got rid of all of the sub NBA talent that they've been playing like 24 minutes a game. Trae Young in his 3 starts for the Hornets, 14 points per game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Grant Williams, 17 points, 7 rebounds. Micic, 11 points, 6 assists. He's looked really good running the offense. He's the 2-time EuroLeague MVP. Just was waiting for an opportunity. Did not fit the OKC system. They signed him to the contract primarily just to trade him. They knew that he didn't fit their system, that he wasn't going to be able to play with SGA. But he's going to get a huge opportunity with the Hornets. Plays comparable to like LaMelo Ball in terms of like, he's a great passer and bigger guard, run the offense. LaMelo's always hurt. He only plays like 30 games a year, so he's in line for a huge opportunity. And then even guys like Seth Curry and Davis Bertans, those guys are playing and in the rotation. Davis Bertans was not playing at all like the last like 2 years, and now he's like the backup 3 on this team. Nick Smith Jr., JT Thor, Bryce McGowan, Nathan Mensah, Leaky Black, all out of the rotation. It's a good time to be a Charlotte Hornets fan.
Yeah, I really like Brandon Miller. Just want to touch. We talked about it.
Oh, yeah. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let you go. You go.
No. Go on Brandon Miller.
Just Brandon Miller has no badges. He goes up to an 82. It just doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, he's really well in the mid-range. Has shot the 3 considerably well. Pretty much is, I think what he said. What did he say? His idol is Paul George. Like, I mean, come on, and you give him no badges. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Everybody's idols. Every wing ever's idol is Paul George, and before that, it was Tracy McGrady. Like,
yeah, it's just interesting how 2K picks and chooses who gets badges when. Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I will say that it's the small forwards who mostly get shafted on the badges. They don't have enough badges for that position. Like a lot of the badges relate to point guards. They're all like shot, passing or shot creation, etc. And then a lot of the defensive badges are related to like big men. There's not, unless you're like a defensive wing, like a Matisse Thybulle or whoever. probably not going to have a ton of badges. So it's guys like Harrison Barnes or Brandon Miller or Gordon Hayward is a player who has only 3 fucking badges. Like they need to come up with more badges for these guys who aren't like Jimmy Butler has 48 badges, but again, he's creating, he's a good defensive player, etc. But I mean, they also need to do a better job of like. There's no reason that Brandon Miller should have had 0 badges as the number 2 overall pick in the fucking draft.
Agree. All right, let's.
What it's worth, Miller over his last 10 games, 24 points per game, shooting 49 from the field, 41 from 3, 86 from the free throw line. So he's starting to come on. Teams on the upswing, they could see movement. Next update, a lot of these guys, they only played 3 games post deadline, and there were 12 games in the rating cycle. So Meach only a 74, and Mann didn't move at all. But
yeah, I was gonna say Mann is the biggest one that I think will move if he keeps playing like he's playing. Yeah, let's jump to the Jazz. John Collins goes +1 to an 81 overall, -2 for Jordan Clarkson to a 79 overall, +1 for Chris Dunn to a 77 overall. Keontae George goes +1 to a 76, and then Amr Yurtseven goes -1 to a 74 overall. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
Utah Jazz, 26 and 29, dropped to 11th in the Western Conference. They are 4-7 since the last update. Big news for them is Danny Ainge again punted on the regular season at the trade deadline. Sent out 3 rotation players for draft picks: Simone Fontecchio, Kelly Olynyk, and Ochai Agbaji. So Lauri Markkanen not happy about that. He is eligible for renegotiate and extend during the off season. So keep your eye on that. They're 3 back of Golden State in the lost column for 10th, so they're probably out of the play-in mix. They went back to their Laurie, Collins, Kessler front court, just kind of due to lack of options once they traded out Olynyk and Fontecchio. They also went back to starting Keontae George over Chris Dunn again. Taylor Horton-Tucker is back in the rotation. He's the backup 3, filling the Fontecchio void, but goddamn did they lose a lot of shooting. If you go from Fontecchio to Taylor Horton-Tucker, and then also losing Olynyk, oh god.
Playing Taylor Hendricks now, too. He's more defensive than he is offensive. His offenses look so bad. I wouldn't be shocked to see them reach a buyout agreement with like Otto Porter Jr. Because he's not going to play.
Or just cut him because actually looking to sign him.
True. I mean, he could fit on like a playoff team or something like that, like somewhere. Maybe
he could fit on this team. Like they don't really have anybody at the 3.
Yeah, true.
He needs to play and like rebuild his brand. But speaking of playing, Taylor Hendricks is finally in the rotation. That's part of the reason why they trade Kelly Olynyk, even though he was such a valuable part of their team, is if you bring him back, then what happens with all these guys that you drafted? So Hendricks in the rotation, 4 points a game, 6 rebounds, 18 minutes per game, only shooting 31% from the field through 3 games, but he's going to have more of an opportunity. And then Bryce Sensabaugh hasn't played yet, but might eventually. Who knows?
He can score. It's just a matter of if he's going to get the playing time. What I'll be interested to see if they do let go of Porter. Jason Preston has been killing it in the G League for the Salt Lake City Stars. Triple doubles left and right. Maybe he'll get a standard contract at some point. That would be something I'd look for moving forward, just so they can kind of retain him under the Utah umbrella. But we'll see. Let's go to the Sacramento Kings because I think we're going to maybe speed it up just a little bit just so our video doesn't go like 3 hours. So looking at the Kings, they're changed.
Most of my notes, for what it's worth, were on these first 10 teams because nice. They're all the best teams in the league are in like that first 10. So we're very front loaded.
Right. Okay.
This middle alphabetically is where all the mediocre teams just like pop up and like we're just I absolutely want to power through a lot of these.
Okay. Let's jump through the Kings because I don't think there's a ton to talk about with them, but they did get a big change with De'Aaron Fox going -2 to an 87 overall. How in the world did Domantas Sabonis not go up with the triple doubles left and right? Like, I don't understand. We'll talk about that in a second. But
Yeah, I'm glad you caught that.
-1 for Keegan Murray to an 82 overall. Harrison Barnes +1 to a 78 overall. Still no badges. Trey Lyles goes +1 to a 77 overall. How have they looked in the rating cycle?
Oh man, I think I came up with a nickname for Harrison Barnes. Knob. No badges.
There you go.
No badge
Yeah.
Barnes.
I don't understand. Like, they just don't want to look at Harrison Barnes at this point. But going back to Sabonis, because that's really what I wanted to focus on with Sacramento. How does he not get an upgrade here? Like, it's kind of like not explainable at all. Like, there's no justification for what he's doing. No, yes, he got snubbed from the All-Star game, but you still got to rate him accordingly if you're 2K.
Yeah, looking through his. Well, I guess part of his ratings issue is still like his athleticism ratings are like his 48 speed, 44 acceleration, 49 lateral quickness. Like all of his statistic based attributes are actually on point. He's got an 83 3-point rating, which is dumb high for a player with. He's shooting a high percentage, but he doesn't shoot them any type of volume.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got a 98 ball IQ. He's got a 79 pass vision. He's got high rebound ratings, only a 45 pass perception. You know, like a lot of his ratings are just like he came in with them when he was drafted. They've been low and they just haven't updated them in 10 years. Is a big part of the problem.
Interesting. I mean,
I'm at a 90 overall in my roster, by the way.
I was about to say he deserves a 90.
Kings, yes, he's been their best player, at least over the last week, because Fox has slipped a little bit. Mm-hmm. But Sacramento Kings, 31-23, 8th in the Western Conference, 7-5 since the last update. They're on pace for 47 wins. This is the best Western Conference in a number of years. If I recall, it was 2008. We referenced that year again. What a great year for basketball. The Warriors won 48 games and missed the playoffs.
Wow.
So the Kings are the 8th seed, gunning for 47. That's how good the West has been this season. Sabonis, for this rating cycle, 25 points per game, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, 67% from the field, 50% from three, 80% from the free throw line. He had 6 triple-doubles in 12 games, leading the league with 18. Remember last month when you made the Alperen Şengün comparison? Like, which one of these guys is an all-star?
Mm-hmm. Now that's it's not even close. Yes.
We'll move on.
You're right. Yeah. Let's go to who is an all-star. New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson +2 to a 92 overall. Well deserved for him, I think. One of the biggest, I guess you could say, biggest movers as far as the overall season goes. Isaiah Hartenstein goes +3 in this update to an 82 overall. Dante DiVincenzo +1 to an 81 overall. +1 for Precious Achiuwa to a 77 overall. +1 for Miles McBride to a 76 overall. And +1 for Jericho Sims to a 73 overall. Interesting to me that Dante DiVincenzo didn't go up a tiny bit more, because I think he's averaging, 23 a game over the rating cycle, I believe, somewhere in that range.
I didn't check, but I know he's been shooting the 3-ball really crazy.
Let me see. I believe it was 23. 23, 4 and 4 on 46% field goal percentage, 40 from 3. I didn't count last night's games because, they don't count it.
Play last game. He popped his hamstring against the Rockets.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
any thoughts on the Knicks?
Yeah, New York Knicks, 33-22, 4th in the Eastern Conference, 6-5 since the last update. They've lost their last 4 in a row. Everyone on the team is hurt except for Jalen Brunson, pretty much. Precious Achiuwa last night, 43 minutes. Jericho Sims, 39 minutes in a game start. Alec Burks, 30 minutes in a game start. Phibbs was overjoyed to get his boy back. And then Jacob Toppin, 11 points in 17 minutes, after not playing at all for the entire year.
Got to get him ready for the slam dunk contest.
Yeah, the Knicks are I wouldn't say that they're in trouble, but they lost all their guys at like a bad time, so that's why they slipped in the standings. But otherwise, I think a lot of people are very high on the direction that they're trending as a franchise as a whole. Jalen Brunson has just completely changed the arc of the franchise. And for this rating cycle, 32 points per game, 6 assists per game, 51 from the field, 35 from three, 85 from the line. This is like Dame Lillard production from like last year. Precious Achiuwa in 9 starts this rating cycle, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 54 from the field, 28 from three, 78 from the line. So he's shooting a little bit better than he normally does. Played 41 minutes per game in this rating cycle. Holy shit. Yeah, those are my key standouts for the week. And we mentioned DiVincenzo averaging 23 points per game, or 24 points per game for this cycle. Jalen Brunson, he is our first player to get a badge update. They're actually Knicks that got a badge update. Brunson went from 34 badges to 31 to 34, and then Isaiah Hartenstein went from 2 badges to 3.
Interesting.
Let me see where. Can you right bumper Jalen Brunson rather than like go into like the edit screen?
To his badges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think that's a more a better display than like going into the menu itself.
Just disclaimer: they need to fix it. They got to fix it
because there was a lot.
They got to fix the menu system here.
Yeah, I missed the way that they did it last year.
Yeah,
personality badges is just not like who. Yeah, he has no personality. Great,
yeah.
great. Yeah, I beg to differ. But
yeah, exactly.
So the 3 badges that got added for Brunson were blinders, free points, and dimer. All of those were golds. For him to not have dimer at all to begin with, like not even a bronze, is kind of absurd. In general, if you're adding golds to a player rather than like upgrading them from bronzes or silvers, you're probably not on top of your badges. Because it's not like Jalen Brunson got better, like crazy better overnight. He was already pretty good last year. Was like a borderline all-star level player.
Mm-hmm.
So he got those 3 badges. Pretty much, like you see, he's got a lot of golds. All those golds used to be bronzes and silvers. All those silvers used to be bronzes. How many bronze badges does he have total now? Like 4 or 5?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Catch and shoot, scooper, speed booster, and spin cycle.
Yeah, like so that's where a lot of the his rating boost comes from this cycle, is just from all the badge upgrades that he got. And then going over to Isaiah Hartenstein, the only thing that he got added was Brick Wall. That's a silver now. Then Box Out Beast and Rebound Chaser. He already had those, but those got boosted from a silver to a gold.
Nice. Interesting that they, like I said earlier with Brandon Miller, who they select for some changes. I guess it all depends on the overall, like if they can get it.
Yeah, this was actually the second badge update for Hartenstein. Last update, he was one of the guys that they brought him from 1 badge to 2, and now they brought him from 2 badges to 3. A lot of the badge update, like, so for him to get updated, I guarantee they probably listened to like our video last week, because they did make some changes. Victor Wembanyama, who we'll touch on later, is a player who we made a commentary on his badges, and he had like one very minor change that like they basically brushed up on what they did the previous week based on like whatever limited feedback they got. So I'm sure that might have played into it in some regard. This is his second update in 3 weeks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also been playing really well this season, filling in for Mitchell Robinson. It's not he's a +3, but it's not just because of those badges.
Right.
Obviously.
Let's jump to the Lakers. They actually have an all-star that went down in rating. Anthony Davis drops 1 overall to a 93 overall. Rui Hachimura goes +1 to an 80 overall. New acquisition, Spencer Dinwiddie, drops -2 to a 77 overall. Jackson Hayes gets a +2 to a 76 overall. And then Skylar Mays, all the way down here, goes a -1 to a 73 overall. Any thoughts on the Lakers?
Lakers are 30-26, ninth in the Western Conference. They are 8-3 since the last update, winners of 6 of the last 7. And they just signed Spencer Dinwiddie, LA native, off the buyout market. He's essentially the sixth man on this team, 8 points per game, 6 assists in through 2 games so far with the Lakers, 30 minutes per game off the bench. Recall that they previously were they'd flip between like Austin Rivers and D'Angelo Russell as the sixth man. Now they're just moving forward with both of those guys at the starter. So they need somebody who's going to run that second unit, and Dinwiddie apparently is up to the task. The Lakers, they didn't make a big move at the deadline, and did you read the reports about LeBron?
Oh my God, man!
Yeah,
with the Warriors, yeah, that was crazy. Draymond's recruiting, and it's like, okay, so you get the little the hourglass with emoji from LeBron, and then you get the passive aggressive comments in the media. Then all of a sudden the report comes out that Draymond's recruiting him. Draymond's sitting next to him and Rich Paul at the Super Bowl. So it's just interesting timing with it all. Now the report came out late, I guess it was late afternoon yesterday, that the Lakers would highly consider Bronny James if they come. Like, if it's me, you have to pretty much burn a first-round pick to go draft Bronny James, which would not be smart in your long term, even if it does bring LeBron, because Father Time's eventually going to catch LeBron, whether it's next year or the year after. Like, he's going to have to retire at some point. So then you're left burning a first-round pick, and if you're the Lakers, you basically are left, if LeBron leaves, with AD and some other pieces. And it's like, that's not enough to contend in the West. So you're basically, and we know LeBron will leave a team real quick, barren, and not care. So, it's just interesting with all these reports kind of flying around.
I'm here for Moses Malone version of LeBron, just like signing minimum contracts every year with other teams. Just join a different. Once you're 40 in the NBA, just join every team. But so that whole the Lakers not making a deadline move, LeBron and his agents were basically like, fuck around and find out. Like, we got stuff to talk about now for the rest of the season now, right? But I actually love the fit of the Warriors for LeBron because they're actually on his timeline. Curry's 35, Draymond and Clay are 33. The Lakers, the rest of their core is considerably younger. Like, build the team around AD moving forward. Get what you can for LeBron now. I think that their window for a title with LeBron, it's not closed in the same way that it's not closed for like the Miami Heat or anything, but it's damn near there. The list is a lot tougher than it was last year. I don't think that they're not nearly as assured of LeBron having a big playoffs and taking the team to the conference finals, because he didn't actually have a big playoffs last year. It was just good enough, and the Grizzlies obviously also melted down. That definitely played But the Warriors, they have guys like Kuminga, Moody, Podziemski, Trace Jackson Jr. You could bring Andrew Wiggins has not played well for Golden State, so he'd definitely be heading to LA as part of like such a deal, and he would make sense next to Russell and Reeves and AD. So like I think there is smoke, there's fire, and obviously if the Lakers could get Jonathan Kuminga for 38-year-old, 39-year-old LeBron, you fly LeBron to the airport, I think.
Man, that's just tough, because then you're looking at like everybody's going to be in the comments of like, well, LeBron had to team jump, you had to team up with the Warriors, so then you can't crucify KD so much if that happens.
If he was traded, then it's not team jumping. It's not like when he signed with, hey, Shaq was traded how many times?
Yeah, but his influence so much, like, you can't tell me behind the scenes that, he's not orchestrating his next move already. Like, because he's looking at, okay, how much of a window, like, if I don't win it this year with the Lakers, like, we don't have much. Because basically they're going to have to rely on the referees giving them a lot of foul calls or hitting a lot of shots in a game, and you don't want to go shot for shot against Phoenix, the Warriors, like those kind of teams in, say, the second round, or necessarily maybe even in a play-in situation with another team. Like,
Austin Reeves not getting the same whistle that he did last year.
Mhm.
Apparently, all that just charging into guys and throwing up a shot, not a foul in this year's NBA.
Hmm. Interesting. Let's jump to the Orlando Magic. So I'm gonna go off of the official list because obviously we type our own lists up before 2K puts out the official list, but it looks like they finally uploaded their official list. So only two changes on their list for the Magic. Cole Anthony goes -2 to a 79 overall, -1 to a 74 overall for Joe Ingles. Not really much to talk about necessarily with Orlando unless you have a little bit to talk about. I don't have anything for them.
The Orlando Magic, 30-25, eighth in the Eastern Conference, 7-4 since the last update. They have the number 4 defense in the NBA. Franz Wagner, 22-6-5 over this rating cycle, 34 minutes per game, shot 50% from the field, 38 from 3, 86 from the line. No ratings update.
Yeah, interesting. They upped Paolo Banchero so far to an 87, but then you leave Wagner to an 84. Just interesting.
Yeah, I think Wagner's the better player, but that's just me. And
Um,
obviously, Banchero going to the All-Star game, so.
right. Yeah, I like Wagner a lot. I don't know that I'd say better player per se, but I definitely like. I'm intrigued going forward to where they're going to be with him. Um, let's go ahead and jump to. Oh, go ahead.
By the way, we mentioned the Orlando Magic. Let's break this again. The Orlando Magic, 7-4 since the last update. What were their rating changes?
2. You get
What were they?
you get Cole Anthony going down -2, and then you get a -1 for Joe Ingles.
So the Magic went 7-4, and they got worse ratings wise.
Yeah, I guess
That's because the Magic are not winning games offensively. They're winning games with their number 4 ranked defense. 2K does not update defensive ratings. They only focus on mostly stat-based stuff, which is shooting primarily, shooting, rebounds, assists, steals, etc. So, the Magic, despite being a 5 games over 500, one of the more promising teams in the East, their ratings are dismal. They only have 3 guys on the team who are over an 80 overall, and it's because guys just aren't, rated the way that they appropriately should be. Jonathan Isaac has been crazy good defensively in limited minutes. Goga Bitadze has been another reinforcement behind Wendell Carter. Jalen Suggs has been defensively.
Yeah, Suggs needs more defensive badges for sure.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like if you know this because this is your content that you focus on, but with the badge upgrades, if they went through and did a massive badge update once per season, that would change a lot of ratings for a lot of guys and kind of get them more, I think, in line with where they should be. And that's kind of what's holding the rating system back is the athletic ratings and then like speed, ball handle, speed with ball, strength, like those kind of ratings, and then the defensive not being changed like that. That does a lot to getting guys kind of up and down on the scale. But I think in the history of 2K, they've only done speed ratings once, and that was like a massive update they did maybe 6-7 years ago, and then that was all they've ever really update other than the off season going into a new game. So who knows? Dallas Mavericks. So their changes in this update: Josh Green goes +1 to a 77 overall. Derrick Jones Jr. goes -1 to a 76 overall. Dwight Powell goes -1 to a 76 overall, and Jaden Hardy goes +1 to a 75 overall. Interesting to me that Daniel Gafford didn't get a little boost there, considering how well he's played since being a Dallas Maverick. And even if you count in the stats that he had for Washington, he still should have had a little bit of a boost. But what do you think?
Here I run feverishly to check Daniel Gafford's stats, but the Dallas Mavericks are 32-23, which is only good for 7th in the Western Conference. They are 8-3 since the last update on a 6-game win streak. Before we go over Daniel Gafford's stats, I thought you were going to talk about Luka Doncic, who had 73 points the day after the last roster update. 73, 10 and 7 in that one. 25 of 33 from the field, 8 of 13 from three, 15 of 16 from the free throw line. That's like a 2K line, except you can't get to the line 16 times in a 2K game. But he was, and then beyond that, he was the Western Conference Player of the Week for this week, not even counting the 73-point week. Over his last 10 games, 36 points per game, 10 rebounds, 11 assists per game, averaged a triple-double, 53 from the field, 38 from three, 80% from the free throw line. Notable that previously I think he was like a 73, 74% free throw shooter for his career. So he's been shooting the ball from all areas a lot better. And although he averaged a triple-double, he only had 2 triple-doubles during the cycle. He's really good at grabbing exactly 9 rebounds anytime he has double-digit assists. Career highs this year in three-point percentage and free throw percentage, 38% and 78% respectively. 62 true shooting, 36% usage. Didn't go up in rating.
Crazy he didn't go. Well, then they'd have to look at how many guys are going to be a 98, as I think. But if you're going to pick somebody, he's one that deserves it. Because if you've got, Embiid's at a 98, Jokic is at a 98.
Embiid and Joker.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's right there. He's probably 4th in the MVP conversation at this point, now that you take Embiid out. So, I would think. But
what holds him back, obviously, is the defense and his athleticism. If he had, which they boost up a little bit. I don't think he should have a 75 dunk rating, but he's a little at an 84 speed, 75 lateral quickness. Guys like Jimmy Butler are, I think, a little higher. And then like 75 defensive consistency, self defense. If he was just a little better than average, he would definitely hit that 98, I think, pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me. Oh, and then Kyrie's one that I thought maybe could have got a +1 boost personally, but did he play
enough games?
Yeah, that was going to be the question mark. Like it's kind of like
he played 6 games this cycle.
I mean, that's still they've done
27 points on 58% from the field, 43% from three.
I was going to say they've done rating changes for less, so that's what I was kind of thinking.
And they have not lost since he returned to the lineup.
Yeah, so I thought a +1 bump at least, like because you got to get these teams more in line with where they are performance-wise for the season, and then lower some of the teams that aren't as good. But
and you are correct. Daniel Gafford over the last 10 games, 14 points, 11 rebounds, 66% from the field, 2.4 blocks in 27 minutes per game.
I mean, I would have had him on par with Lively at 80, but that's just me.
Yeah, I haven't made 81 in my roster, but
yeah, Tim Hardaway too, but yeah. Yeah, let's go over to the Brooklyn Nets. So their changes, Nick Claxton goes -1 to an 84 overall. Dennis Schroeder -1 to a 79 overall. Ben Simmons finally back semi-healthy, I guess, +2 to a 78 overall. Lonnie Walker -1 to a 77 overall. And then Jalen Wilson +2 to a 72 overall. What's your thoughts on Brooklyn?
Brooklyn Nets 21 and 33 in the Eastern Conference, 4-7 since the last update. Dennis Schroeder and Spencer Dinwiddie out. Cam Thomas happy. Schroeder in the last 3 games, 9 points per game, 5 assists, 36% from the field. So whatever. Ben Simmons returned. Woo! 6 games, 4 starts, 7 points per game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists in 20 minutes per game. He did shoot 68% from the field. Don't know why he went up 2 points. He is cooked. He's 6'10", Chris Dunn.
Wow, that's crazy.
To the line, he moves. Once he gets to the 3-point line, he's running like vertical or he's running horizontally rather than vertically.
Yeah.
He just doesn't attack at all. It's fine. Like he's an NBA player. He'll be able to make $3 million a year on all subsequent contracts. He's not worth $44 million is the problem that the Brooklyn Nets are, going to have as they try to build a team moving forward.
Surprised Cam Thomas didn't get an adjustment, 24 points a game in 24 minutes. Obviously his play is kind of sporadic, but at least kind of get him online like 81, maybe 82, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm guessing his shooting percentage is probably too low because it's only 44% for the cycle. 42% from 3 and 91% from the line, but maybe all he does is shoot. So Some low, unless he's really killing it from mid range, he's not really going to move up, I think.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump to Denver. One single change for the roster. I mean, I guess Christian Brown goes -1 to a 75. They did. In fairness, I guess you could add the position change for Justin Holiday to shooting guard in there. He didn't change rating, but he did get a position change.
Yeah, so the Denver Nuggets 36-19, fourth in the Western Conference, 5-5 since the last update. As mentioned, Christian Braun 75 overall, the only player to change in rating this update. He's the only Nugget to change in since January 11th. If you recall, last update, no Nuggets had a rating update.
Was Peyton Watson already a power forward, or did they change that too?
I think he already was a power forward.
Okay. I didn't know if I was missing that. Somehow,
I have it in my notes he was a power forward.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope still sits at a 77 3 months later, but,
Yep.
I guess.
Yep. Same. Oh, he's really just as good as Reggie Jackson, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't know, but it is what it is. I guess we don't get paid to do it, so it is what it is. Let's jump to.
I mean, real quick, the epitome of just fucking laziness with this team is DeAndre Jordan is a 76 overall. He's not even in the rotation the last really the entire year.
Yeah. No, he had that little stretch 2-3 games, and that's what they counted off of because he went up in rating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 2-3 games.
Yeah, let's that will be fair to the roster guys. The 2-3 games count, I guess. Indiana Pacers. Yes. Tyrese Halliburton. He have an interesting note after I run through these. Tyrese Halliburton -1 to a 92 overall. Miles Turner -1 to an 83 overall. Aaron E. Smith +1 to an 80 overall, and then Jalen Smith +1 to a 78. Players only meeting after the last game for them. Just trying to kind of get reset. But I know you had something that you wanted to mention on Tyrese Halliburton.
Yep. So the Indiana Pacers 31-25, sixth in the Eastern Conference, 7-5 since the last update. Tyrese Halliburton went down in rating. However, he actually had badges added to him in this update, which I believe makes him the first player in 2K history to go down in rating when they got badges, which makes me wonder what ratings they dropped on him. But do you want to go hop into his badges and I'll review?
All right. Right there. All right.
So Halliburton goes from 28 badges to 34. The badges that got added were free points. That is clutch freaking. That's a gold. Fearless finisher and comeback kid at silver. Ankle breaker also at silver. And then for bronze, bunny and blinders. Those are the 6 additions. He also had a number of layup badges that are all golds: Pro Touch, Slithery, Float Game, Catch and Shoot, Claymore. A lot of these they were bronzes, now they're golds. And then for silver, stuff like Acrobat, Green Machine, Guard Up, Space Creator, Handles for days, Hyper Drive, Special Delivery. Those all went up. So I have no idea what they dropped on him or why they felt they needed to drop him. I didn't take this down in my notes, but when I reviewed it, but he only played. He's been playing less because of he's been playing hurt because of the 65 game restriction for awards. It's if you play under 20 minutes, the game doesn't count. So he's been playing 20 to 22 minutes a game for the first 4 games when he came back from injury. So that kind of reduced his overall numbers. So for this rating cycle, he averaged only 15 points per game and only 8 assists per game, but that was in only 27 minutes per game. Obviously, if he played his regular minutes, he would have put together the same production. So I don't really understand why they would feel the need to drop his rating, except maybe because 2Ks are the guy who makes the roster as a casual who looks at points per game as an effective barometer of player's effectiveness, which it is not, but I guess that's why Jalen Green is so high, and RJ Barrett, etc.
Looks like offensive consistency went -3 to a 95. minus 10 for intangibles to an 85. And I'm looking through just to check.
Well, that in itself, the minus 10 to the intangibles is enough to generate a minus 1. So
Okay.
that's probably all it is. I just don't like. What's the need for it? Maybe they wanted him to be the same rating as like Jalen Brunson heading into the All Star game. My guess.
Close and mid dropped. Close dropped minus 2, and mid dropped minus 2 as well.
Yeah, just a marginal decrease. Sure.
Yep.
I don't have any other notes on the team. Jalen Smith has been playing really well off the bench. Pascal Siakam, I thought, has been playing well, but he didn't go up. Aaron Nemhard, he enters the starting lineup in the absence of, not absence, but they traded Buddy Hield. And they definitely downgraded their roster going from Hield to Doug McDermott, even though, they're sixth in the Eastern Conference and they have the number one, or they had the number one offense in the NBA. Now they slipped to number 2. So
one rating I'd like to see go down is Jarris Walker. They jumped the gun on him. He is not a 76. He barely plays at all. Like, they got to knock that back down, because if you've got you haven't even touched Ben Shepherd all year, and he's actually in the semi in the rotation, even though he's not.
That's the problem that they have. I think we touched on that last week also with the Mo Bamba rating, where these guys, and we just mentioned it with the DeAndre Jordan thing. They play 2 or 3 games, so 2K will overreact and boost their rating because, oh, look at their production, and then they're out of the rotation, and they only update players if they play, if they get to actually produce. So now Walker's stuck here with a 76, even though he's not playing.
Right, and then Ben Shepherd gets nothing, even though he hasn't been that productive. He's at least semi-playing versus Walker that's not.
Yeah,
So
well, he's a defensive player, so good luck.
Yeah, right. Let's jump to the New Orleans Pelicans. Brandon Ingram gets his +1, -1 change like every update, so he goes +1 in this one to an 86 overall. -2, same thing happens for Larry Nance Jr. He usually fluctuates 1 or 2 every update when healthy, so he goes -2 in this one to a 77. -1 for Najee Marshall to a 75. And then Jordan Hawkins, who's shooting 30%, has not looked great, -1 to a 74. Quick note, Dyson Daniels is probably out for the year with the torn meniscus. That hurts them because he is a good defender. Now that gives a chance to see what I guess Hawkins can do, reinserted back in the rotation. But you got anything for the Pelicans?
Not a ton. This is the one team that I've pretty much done all of the teams in my roster except for the Pelicans. So unfortunately, I have very little to discuss. I don't really know what's happened with their team this year, and I don't want to talk about things I don't really know. So the Pelicans for the year 33-22, fifth in the Western Conference, 7-4. It's the last update. Brandon Ingram went up the point. For this cycle, he averaged 22 points per game, 6.5 assists, 50% from the field, 40 from 3. Only 71% from the line, though. Choker.
So I got a question for you, because obviously this is your bread and butter is the ratings. It's when you're looking at the same position and you're looking at a guy like a Brandon Ingram versus a DeMar DeRozan, them kind of being the same rating per se, and then when you look at your set roster, is it more the badge changes, or is it just the overall defense added with badge changes and stuff like that kind of differentiates the two versus a 2K default roster?
What was the question?
So if you're looking at the same position, like the small forward position, for example, with somebody like a DeRozan and a Brandon Ingram, is it more the badges just kind of being updated on your end of the roster with actually looking at the defense attributes as well? Or is it something else that 2K is just not hitting from that small forward spot? Because it seems like that small forward spot is where a lot of the ratings kind of get a little funky, in my opinion.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were going with because I have DeMar DeRozan as a power forward in my roster. Even though he's basically a small forward, but that's where the Bulls are essentially playing him. Because we spent too much time on the Bulls, but
right.
So that's where I originally thought the question was going. But so you're asking what what I'm doing in my roster overall wise that differentiates it from 2K.
Correct.
I mean, I am going through and adjusting all the badges for everybody.
Okay.
And for small forward, you're right that the position itself is funky in that it is the highest rated position, but it's also the most limited talent wise, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
guys like the guys who are the good small forwards in the NBA are usually at the top of the league. Guys like a LeBron or a Luka Doncic, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, etc. Guys who are threes are really good, and then you've got guys, and then there's like a very steep drop off. You only have a handful of like the middle tier guys of like Brandon Ingram. Last year, what's his name? Andrew Wiggins was kind of in that like that all star, that fringe all star tier.
Hmm.
You only have like three guys in that tier, and then a couple guys in like that Gordon Hayward tier. And then after that, everybody just kind of falls off a cliff. You've got guys like Isaac Okoro, Matisse Thybulle, etc. Like right now for the Cavs would be like Max Strus, like just your true like 3-and-D role players, etc.
Hmm.
Um, so 2K's rating system in general does a poor job of they weight like shot creation too highly. So a player like because they want a guy like a Brandon Ingram to have a high rating, but a player who doesn't create their own shot like we've seen like Bruce Brown be a high level contributor for a number of teams, even though he's not like an offensive focal point. And Mikal Bridges, I would argue, was more valuable with the Phoenix Suns in a 3-and-D role than he is with the Brooklyn Nets right now, averaging 20 points per game, because he was able to hyper focus on defense. Right now, he's not really playing any defense at all, which kind of defeats the purpose of, that's the whole point of having a Mikal Bridges
Right.
is, so he can play to his strengths. But I digress. Um,
Okay.
so
Just curious.
yeah,
Was
with
just
the
curious with it.
badges, sorry.
I was just curious, just because it kind of gives insight for everybody watching, because they always wonder, like, especially when we look at the Operation Sports stuff, like, why does this person go down? But it's like so and so's the same position; they don't get any, kind of change. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that for
Yeah,
anybody that was curious.
formula wise, small forwards rate higher than shooting guards and power forwards.
Interesting.
I feel like shooting guards and power forwards rate like each of them rate 2 points lower than they normally would at small forward, and that
Mhm.
creates a lot of issues when you have guys like Laurie Markin is probably like the exception to that, but when you have a guy like DeRozan switch over from like the 3 to the 4, for example, that's going to drop his rating. Or I'm trying to think of a good example. Obviously, like Carmelo Anthony earlier in his career, he switched from the 3 to the 4.
Kawhi.
A lot of guys switch from the 3 to the 4. Oh, Jason Tatum is like the primary example of that. Jason Tatum is a 94 overall at power forward, but I'm pretty sure if you change his position to small forward, he's going to rate a 96.
Yeah, let's see. Just for purposes, yep, 96. Same thing happens
So
to Kawhi as well. Like, he goes in rating
yeah, exactly.
changes. So okay. Let's jump over to, let me go back in the menu. All right, Detroit Pistons. So Jaden Ivey goes +1 to an 81 overall, +1 for Marcus Sasser to a 77 overall. Simone Fontecchio, new to the team, +1 to a 76 overall, and then Troy Brown Jr. -2 to a 73 overall. What's your thoughts on Detroit?
The Detroit Pistons, 8-46, 15th in the Eastern Conference. However, they are 3-7 since the last update. They are going to make the playoffs via the play-in. They are going to ride the Simone Fontecchio train. Evan Fournier is going to return to being a 19-point scorer, and everything else is going to go great for the new Troy Weaver era.
I wouldn't say everything, because Isaiah Stewart got arrested last night for punching Drew Eubanks in the face. So I don't know. We'll see.
That's as planned.
Exactly. So
They need a menace on the court.
to me, it's a better, like, it's better balanced, kind of, if you have a like Quentin Grimes off the bench and stuff like that. But it's still a pretty poor roster. Like, they've got to retool still in the offseason. Obviously, having one of the team with one of the most spend happy cap rooms in a weak free agent class doesn't help, because I don't want to revisit, was it 2009 with Ben Gordon and Charlie Villanueva? Like, that was the big prizes for them. Like, I can just in my mind, I hope it doesn't go that route for Detroit. They've got to figure out, obviously you can't get off the Monty Williams money, but you got to figure out something. Jay Ivey, if I was him, I would want out.
Money is the owner's problem.
Yeah, but I'd still want out if I was Jay Ivey. All the games played all season with him, like, it just doesn't seem like he enjoys playing for Monty Williams. But yeah, it is what it is. But,
well, it definitely didn't enjoy playing behind Killian Hayes.
No, who now is probably going back to France, because it doesn't look like anybody, unless you're the Spurs and you sign him. I don't really see anybody else kind of taking a flyer on him, but maybe
he's gonna have to take a two-way contract. I think I don't see any, like, because there's the thing is he's already got like 5,500 NBA minutes, so like there's no reason for like a rebuilding team to sign him to like develop him, right? Like we already know what he is.
I mean, if you can get him with like a Chip England, like as a shooting coach or something, maybe he can kind of show some signs there. But defensively, he's okay and he can pass, but I don't like anything offensively that he does, personally. But I know a lot of people were high and said he, at one point could have been the top pick in the NBA draft that year, which was astronomically idiotic. But
yeah, I don't know. I always saw him as the next Frank Ntilikina.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he is, because now both are not on a roster.
All these teams wanted to outsmart themselves. We talked about the Bulls earlier. They reached for Patrick Williams at number 4. All these teams should have just taken Halliburton.
Yeah, it would have been simpler, but is what it is. A team with question marks going forward. A disgruntled star, maybe. I don't know. Toronto Raptors. Scotty Barnes, speaking of that disgruntled star, left the court early the other night. Had a talking to from the coaching staff and said he won't do it again. We'll see. 85 overall, -1 for him. RJ Barrett, your favorite, gets his annual +1 to an 83 overall.
This time he actually deserves it, though.
Yeah, he does. Good shooting from him lately. Emmanuel Quickley goes -1 to an 80. We have Bruce Brown going -2 to a 78. Position change looks like for him to point guard. Ojai Agbaji goes -2 to a 73 overall. And then Grady Dick, who's come alive recently, goes +3 to a 73 overall. What's your thoughts on Toronto?
Well, okay. All right, Toronto Raptors, 19-36, 12th in the Eastern Conference, 3-8 since the last update. Scotty Barnes, he's a young player. He's fine. And he's going to make his first All-Star. He made his first All-Star team. He's going to meet all those. And I think it's going to be a good experience for him. But obviously losing, nobody likes to lose. RJ Barrett, +1 for him. He's been really good since the trade in this rating cycle. 20 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 53% from the field, 35% from 3. Only 60% from the line is, still a weakness of his game, but whatever. He's been better with Toronto just because they kind of took out the shots that he's not good at. He's running fewer pick and rolls, getting out in transition as the Raptors run more than the Knicks. And he was also running more this season with the Knicks in general, so I guess that was more of a focus for him. And yeah, he's also got like more dunks on the season. I believe I gotta hit back on my browser and scroll a little bit. Sorry guys. 18 dunks on the year in 45 games last year. Or I'm sorry, let me just compare his Raptors versus Knicks splits. 8 dunks with the Knicks, 10 dunks with the Raptors, but he played 7 more games with the Knicks. So he's been getting out in transition more, which is kind of what he was known for coming out of the draft. Anyway, Grady Dick. So I was shocked to see his rating go up. I guess it needed to be higher because he's in the rotation, but like he hasn't been playing well. I guess
he's shooting it okay recently. The last couple games, like he's been strong.
He was really bad prior to that. He had a 22-point game in a 38-point blowout against the Pelicans, a 14-point game in a 24-point blowout against the Cavs, and an 18-point game in a 23-point blowout against the Spurs. So definitely a garbage time specialist for sure.
Yeah, they said the program that he got put on, basically prior to January 21st, it was really bad. After January 21st, he's averaging like 9 points a game, give or take. And then
I see he's shooting 44% from three over this rating cycle. So okay.
Yeah. So I think that's
my favorite thing about Grady Dick is every time the Raptors have one of those teams where I always have to check their positions, because they're so fluid or whatever. So like multiple times throughout this year, I go to NBA.com, I click their box score, I go to the game summary, and I'm like scrolling down, I'm searching for subs, and I just go down the list, and I'm saying these things out loud, and I get to quit Dick, and I had to catch myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but anything with him is like Dick for Barnes, Dick for Brown, and then quickly for Dick. It's just like, what a fucking name.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you get Joel
for the Raptors this week.
Yeah, you get Joel Myers on the Pelicans broadcast when they played the other game where he was like Dick Strong to the hole. Like it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
+3 for Dick this week.
Exactly. So real quick housekeeping note for the Raptors. They're one of the teams that had multiple roster spots open. Justice Winslow gets a shot on a 10-day contract, as well as Mahamadou, I guess it's Guy is how you pronounce his last name. He actually played in the last game, scored a 2-point kind of layup in garbage time. So it is what it is there. Let's jump to the Houston Rockets. So their changes, Jalen Green, who we talked about a few minutes ago, goes +1 to an 81 overall. Even though he sat the last 2 games in the fourth quarter, benched for Nate Hinton, of all people. So that's interesting. Amen Thompson, who's been playing great since starting for the injured Fred VanVleet, goes +3 to an 80 overall. Cam Whitmore gets a boost +4 to a 79 overall. And then Jeff Green continues to slide down in overall this year, goes -1 to a 74. What's your thoughts on Houston?
I thought Jeff Green had a good game the other day, but Houston Rockets, 24-30, 12th in the Western Conference, 4-7 since the last update. Did check up Jalen Green, 20.5 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists for the cycle, 44.5 from the field, 26% from three. Normally when guys shoot that bad, they drop in rating. So I don't know when their cutoff was. He is over 10 from three in his last 2 games, so maybe it was a little before that. But Houston's been struggling a little bit. Amen Thompson and Whitmore, I also didn't get a chance to put my research on. I know that Thompson's been starting with VanVleet sidelined, and he has been putting up some big lines.
Good rebounding, good defense. Doesn't shoot it the greatest, but
can't shoot.
Yeah.
So,
and it's the opposite for Cam Whitmore, because Cam Whitmore has not seen a shot that he doesn't like. He shoots it a lot. Luckily for him, it's kind of it's going in, but defensively, he's not somebody that you would rely on. So I guess they balance each other out in that aspect. But I was just like, wow, when
Whitmore
I saw
did have some big games. Whitmore, 18 points per game and only 21 minutes per game in this cycle. 47 from the field, 42 from three. So he's a bucket. And then Amen Thompson, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.7 steals, 59% from the field, but only 25 from three. So at the very least, he's like Ben Simmons-ish. If you're going to have Ben Simmons at 78, you got to have Amen Thompson at an 80, right?
Right, yeah, it's got to be higher. Like I didn't have an issue with that versus like Cam Whitmore. I was like, ooh, like 79's a little high, but
by that stretch, if you're going to have Amen Thompson at an 80, then you got to have Dillon Brooks at a 90, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's where I was looking, and I was like, whoa, because like Dillon Brooks is only an 80, Jabari Smith's an 80. Like they got Tari Eason at an 80, which I think is a tad bit high. Like some of those guys, like it's kind of has to be balanced. They didn't for the second update in a row. Aaron Holiday hasn't played lights out, but Aaron Holiday's played well enough to be higher than a 73 in my opinion. But
Aaron Holiday hasn't gotten an update uh, the entire year.
oh wow, that's crazy. And he's been in the rotation consistently, so that's what's
Yes.
been even more crazy about it. But let's go over to somebody that has gotten considerable updates, as he should. San Antonio Spurs, Victor Wembanyama, damn near quadruple double the other night. Just was on fire. +1 to an 89 overall. Trey Jones, who proves that Pop should have put a real point guard in there to begin with. Maybe Wembanyama wouldn't even be in a debate with Chet Holmgren for Rookie of the Year at this point if he had Trey Jones in the lineup to start. Trey Jones goes +1 to a 79. Zach Collins goes -1 to a 77. And all the way down here playing in spot minutes, Dominic Barlow goes +1 to a 73 overall. What's your thoughts on Wemby going up and then the Spurs overall?
I thought you were going to talk about Dominic Barlow. I totally didn't see the Wemby thing coming. But the San Antonio Spurs, 11-44, 15th in the Western Conference, 3-8 since the last update. Wembanyama, as mentioned previously, he got a minor badge update. They added posterizer to him as a bronze. Previously, they'd given him Rise Up, I believe, or they gave him Precision Dunker and no posterizer. Usually those badges kind of go hand in hand. So I think that was something that we noted last time. And he still doesn't have any other shooting badges, or like he's still missing half the defensive badges that he should have. I think I have.
He got catch and
I have
shoot.
32 badges on him.
That's it.
He has 12.
He literally has catch and shoot. I think that's the only shooting badge. I'm looking at it
Yeah.
now. Like
for this rating cycle, 21 points per game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, 3.2 blocks, 48% from the field, 41% from 3, 84% from the line. Shooting the 3-ball a lot better. Already basically a better version of what Jaren Jackson Jr. is for the Grizzlies. Do you think he's going to hit 90 overall before the end of the year?
he probably will know in 2K because they keep fluctuating guys like Zion and Anthony Edwards.
He's got a better shot of it than Domantas Sabonis, right?
Yeah, at this point I don't. Yeah, exactly. Good point. On that note, let's jump to Phoenix. Phoenix, Devin Booker goes +1 to a 95. He kind of fluctuated between 94 and 95 previously. Eric Gordon gets the annual +1 -2 like every update. He goes +1 in this one to a 76 overall. Drew Eubanks got the sympathy +1 because he got punched in the face yesterday. He's a 76 overall now. And Josh Okogie goes +1 to a 75 overall. Thoughts on Phoenix?
Phoenix Suns, 33-22, 6th in the Western Conference, 7-3 since the last update. Devin Booker was Western Conference Player of the Week for January 29th when he scored 62 points for this rating cycle, 28 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 52% from the field, 37% from 3, 83% from the free throw line. He did have some badge updates. One of them was an ad. I don't think I notated it properly, but like blinders up 1, catch and shoot up 1, claymore up 2, limitless range, spot finder, break starter, hyperdrive, killer combos, needle threader, special delivery, unpluckable, touch passer, triple strike, and those all became golds, and silver went up to or dimer went up to silver. So I don't think his badge total went up, but he definitely had some upgrades to make him like a more viable point guard. And yeah, the Phoenix Suns have been playing a lot better. Bradley Beal's healthy, so we'll see if they can stay healthy and make a run in the playoffs.
All right. Let's jump to a team that barely got any changes, the OKC Thunder. 2 changes for them. Lou Dort goes -1 to a 78 overall, and then Aaron Wiggins goes +2 to a 77 overall. Other notables, I guess, Cason Wallace got a position change to point guard, it looks like. Kenrick Williams to power forward. They added in Adam Flagler on a 2-way. Biyombo gets added, even though he won't play till after the All-Star game. Anything notable you got on OKC?
Oh, they actually took Landy Waters off the standard contract. Go 2K.
Yeah.
Or off the two-way contract. They
Oh,
put him on the
two-way, yeah,
standard
put him on
contract
the
then?
standard. Yeah.
Lovely. OKC Thunder 37-17, second in the Western Conference, 6-4 since the last update. I don't really have any notes. I think the Hayward acquisition is going to be a great addition for them come playoff time,
Agree.
as he probably makes a lot more sense in some closing lineups than Josh Giddey.
Yes, Giddy's going to get moved, I think, in the offseason. He's more of a needs the ball in his hands, and that's where he struggled this year because Jalen Williams and SGA both have to have the ball in their hands, and that pretty much makes Giddy strength, which is passing, obsolete. So
Yeah, I know you're a little pressed for time. Otherwise, I would suggest you can talk about like, hey, where do you think Josh Giddey could go? We could save that for next time.
we'll do that for next time. With Giddy, because we'll see if he can turn it around this season. Who knows? Let's go Minnesota Timberwolves. Their changes are Karl Anthony Towns +1 to an 88 overall. And then Naz Reid actually did get a -1 to a 79 overall. And then Monte Morris -1 to a 77 overall. No change for Anthony Edwards. He stays at 89. I saw that debated already in the OS Forums comments. So what's your thoughts on Minnesota?
Bunch of nerds in the forums. Minnesota Timberwolves 38-16, first in the Western Conference, 7-3 since the last update. They have the number one defense in the NBA. Anthony Edwards did not get a rating boost, even though for this cycle, 10 games, 27 points per game, 50% from the field, 43% from three, and 82% from the free throw line.
Yeah, that's going to be a puzzling one. As probably not as puzzling as why he doesn't have a face scan in the game, but nobody knows, and he has not actually. What's interesting is nobody's ever asked him about it, like in interviews. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a preference of his.
That's 2K. They've got 2K TV. They have a whole media team. They should be. They're really on it. They always go to these games. Remember when they had the 2K Insider way back then when he went to all the training camps?
That was terrible. Now they go. They do take They take the what is it? Polygon Studios. They take the little mobile van or whatever it is or whatever. To facilities to get scans. We just don't know when and where they go. So, is what it is, I guess. Portland Trailblazers. They have some changes. Anthony Simons gets a +1 to an 84 overall. Jeremy Grant goes up 1 to an 83 overall. DeAndre Ayton goes +1 to an 82. Malcolm Brogdon, which is kind of odd because he hasn't played, goes -1 to an 81. Jabari Walker, who just recently lost his starting spot to Tamani Kamara, goes -1 to a 76. Speaking of Kamara, he goes +1 to a 74. And then Chris Murray, who's played a couple games due to injuries to other guys, goes +1 to a 73 overall. Thoughts on Portland?
Portland Trailblazers, 15-38, 14th in the Western Conference, 2-7 since the last update. Anthony Simons has been playing really well for the team. I don't have his stats pulled up. I'll dig them out later. But first, I wanted to distract you with a trivia question.
Uh-oh. All right.
What player has gotten a ratings update in every single update this season?
Ooh.
It's a Portland Trailblazer.
Yeah, I figured. Brogdon?
No. Yes.
I know it's not Jeremy Grant.
Nope.
Simons?
No, It is the one and only Tamani Kamara.
Oh, wow. Has he gotten that much love? And he hasn't gone.
He started off as a 68, went up to a 70, then up to a 72, then a 73, then a 74, then back down to a 73, and now he's up to a 74 rating once again.
Interesting. Wow.
2K loves them.
Well, and most of his stuff is defensive, so I don't that's why he's on the floor.
In and out of the starting lineup. He's his rebounds must be going up. I don't. We've already given up. Don't analyze whatever their process is.
Yeah.
It's not a good one.
All right.
24 points per game for Simons, by the way, in this rating cycle. Only 45% from the field, 39% from three. But his assists are up. He's been playing a lot more point guard, 6.5 assists per game. They are going to have to play Scoot and Simons together, given the injury to Brogdon and Sharp. And I think Jeremy Grant also
Chauncey Billups said no. Chauncey Billups said Matisse Thybulle will start at the 2, and that's where we're going.
Oh, all right. Well,
that's what they've been doing, and everybody in Portland is not happy about it on why Scoot Henderson's having to be forced off the bench. But
all right. Well, I guess Chauncey Billups should apply for a job at 2K Sports then, because they probably think alike.
He's in the Jacques Vaughn School of Coaching, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's go to Golden State. So they get some ratings changes. Steph Curry +1 to back up to a 96. Jonathan Kuminga goes +2 to an 82 overall. Klay Thompson, even though he kind of had a good last 2 games, I guess, goes -1 to an 80. Dario Saric position change and a +1 to a 79. Moses Moody somehow gets a change to a 77. Has he even played? I thought he was hurt. Goes +1. Lester Canones gets a position change to point guard. Goes +4 to a 71. And then Guy Santos, who's now not in the rotation, but was briefly, +2 to a 70 overall. Thoughts on Golden State?
The Golden State Warriors. That's a lot of updates for coincidentally. Wow, the Golden State Warriors, 2K's favorite team, but they have been better. They're 26-26, 10th in the Western Conference. They are 7-4. The last update. Steph Curry has turned back the clock a little bit. I think he had a streak of like 7 threes made. Let me see. Click the wrong thing. No, help. Sorry for the bad radio. Okay, Curry over this cycle, 34 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 52% from the field, 48% from three. He was hitting 7 threes per game over this cycle, which is batshit insane. And he shot 93% from the free throw line. So prime Curry right now is why the Warriors have been able to claw their way back to 500. Jonathan Kuminga, he's also been playing really well, got the love with a boost to an 82 overall rating. For this cycle, he averaged 22 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 54% from the field, 36% from three, albeit on much lower volume than Steph. And Klay Thompson... he did miss 2 games. The most notable thing that happened to him this cycle is he didn't close 2 games in the fourth quarter. He did not shoot the ball well this cycle. 38% of the field, 27% from three, only 15 points per game. So, Father Time is starting to catch up to Klay.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses Moody, I'm sure that's just due to a position change because he played 5 games and shot 33%, 23% from three in this cycle.
Interesting. And Brandon Podziemski, if I'm not mistaken, averaged 12 a game. Looked pretty good. Didn't get a bump. Wiggins, who's kind of fared better lately, didn't get any kind of bump. So it is what it is. They did do position changes position change, I should say, on Draymond. They got him at center now. So. Just a little housekeeping note there.
That's been a big part of what's propelled the Warriors is they're actually playing a reasonable lineup now. They got Looney out of the starting lineup.
Yeah, he's kind of their situational rebounder, so to speak. All right, let's wrap up with the Washington Wizards. 2 changes for them. A good change in Denny Advia going up to an 80. He's looked fantastic. I think it's like 17 a game over the cycle. He goes to the +1 to an 80. And then Jordan Poole, who's just looked dismal like all season, -2 to a 77 overall. He's now tied with Corey Kispert there on the team. Kispert gets a position change to shooting guard this time, which is interesting. So what's your thoughts on Washington?
He's been playing the 2 for really the last 2 years. He's a small forward size, but he's essentially like a Duncan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
what was I going to say? Washington Wizards, final team, 9-45, 14th in the Eastern Conference, 2-9 since the last update. They have lost 8 games in a row under interim Brian Keefe. We didn't actually cover this last update, but the Wizards had just made a coaching change. Is he in the game?
He is, yes. He's
Okay,
there as the head coach.
Very dismal ratings, but
yeah, I'm going to check that just on the screen so everybody could see real quick. I mean, his ratings are okay, I guess. Coaching's is a 2.5 star. That's about where his IQ's 3.5 stars. I guess.
He's got the copy paste defaults. Great.
Yeah, there you go.
Denny Avdia. What did you say his line was? Because you didn't factor in last night's game then, right?
No, I didn't factor last night's game in. Was it 17 a game before that? Yeah, I think so.
Because last night he had a career high 43 points, also chipped in 15 rebounds, so that probably didn't even factor into this update. But for this rating cycle, including that, 19 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, 59 from the field, 53 from 3. So he's been one of the breakout guys, one of the few bright spots for this team this year. Jordan Poole has been an antithesis of that. One of probably the worst contract in the NBA, along with Ben Simmons. Actually, Ben Simmons, his contract's only 2 more years. Poole's still got 5 years left on his shit. Averaging 12 points per game for this cycle, 35% from the field, 29% from 3. Who knows if that 35% is actually up from what he was shooting previously? I don't care to look. He's been awful on both ends, and a big reason why the Wizards are where they are.
Hey, the plus side is that Kyle Kuzma didn't want to get traded, so you got that.
I guess
if you're trying to look for any positive,
what that does for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, that's enough on the Wizards. It's great that we get to end with them because we're tired of talking basketball by the time we get to it, so it's great.
Exactly.
It's a nice relief valve.
Yes. Everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in live. For those that are checking it out after the live, please make sure that you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. John, please plug your channel as well as some other stuff you got going on.
My channel is Real2K Rosters. You can, if you want to get access to my roster spreadsheet, where I basically do all the badges for all the players. I use a lot of data from the NBA that you can use for tendencies and stuff like that to develop all my badge stuff. I have been updating ratings, giving full rating edits for players. My roster's been among the top downloaded for much of the year. It's if you're not familiar with me, it's the Real2K Rosters Modern Era on 2K Share, and you can follow me on Twitter /X at Real2KInsider. All
right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Be back on the next ratings update with John to break it all down. Hope everybody has a great weekend.